We will talk today about Power Platform, Power BI and the data lake, and you'll see a pretty interesting session with lots of interesting news, tips and tricks, and I hope you will enjoy it. So just before we start, just a quick announcement for upcoming sessions, which will be on the Stuttgart Power Platform user group. So next week, Nikola Ilic will join us with query folding in Power BI. After that, in May, two also interesting sessions, Gil Raviv on May 7th and Imke Feldman end of May, May 20, with also some interesting topics. So feel free to join and enjoy the session also today. So Thomas, Alex, welcome. Nice to have you here, and I leave the things to you and you can start sharing.
Thank you very much, Augustine.
Yeah, thanks from my side as well for the nice words for the beginning here. So sharing my screen, hope that works nicely. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so big welcome from my side as well. Yeah, the session, I hope so, will be interesting for you as well. So what's on our list for today? So first we will do some introductions and we'll talk about the data lake itself. Then we will talk about, well, some structures. So CDM and other confusions, we called it. Going then into Power BI and the data lake, so showing you how they can work together, and well, a final call to action, and well, that's the program for today. So who are we? So with me is Alex, and well, Alex, perhaps you can introduce yourself quickly.
Yes, nice to meet you guys. My name is Alex Monday. I am working with Avanade for about 3 years, working based in Zurich, Switzerland, and working quite a lot with Power BI and other data platforms.
Thank you. Yeah, and myself, Thomas Parquet. I'm with Avanade now for a little bit more than 15 years. So for anyone who doesn't know Avanade, so I don't have the big commercial slide here, but well, we are founded in 2000. So we are a little bit more than 20 years old. Avanade is a joint venture of Accenture and Microsoft. So Microsoft is one of our big mothers here as well. Yeah, and we are both from the data and analytics team. I'm the lead architect for data and analytics at Avanade here in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. Yeah, that's about us. So, what is data lake, and what are we talking about here? Well, primarily, the data lake for us is just a big data store. So unlimited data, and it's optimized for analytical use cases. Well, it's ready in minutes, so you can just provision it easily from Azure. And then you have unlimited storage there, and you only pay by the gigabyte you put on that. And well, some people say, well, data lake, well, is that something Microsoft is all in for? And I can say yes, absolutely. So when you watch Azure, you see that new tools are popping up regularly. So yes, Power BI has already quite some functionality built in. We will look at that. But also other tools like Synapse, we will cover a little bit about that today. But also Purview and other nice tools who are working nicely with the data lake. So it's really a data platform we are talking about here, which Microsoft provides in Azure. What is really interesting is that not only specialized products in Azure are based on data lake, Also, applications from Microsoft like D365 Dynamics get out of the box support for data lake, and it's really fascinating what Microsoft does here. So just pulling a switch and suddenly you have your bookings and your invoices and so on available in the data lake, and you can do analytics on top of that. Really fascinating piece of technology. So people might ask, why a data lake? And well, I say, why not? So databases are expensive, and we will come back to this point in a moment. So it's really worth thinking about alternatives. And well, in fact, the importance of a fast database is getting a little bit in the background when you have Power BI. Well, we all know the nice power we see each day of the in-memory database Power BI offers. So it's really the question for what you need a database for. For sure, there are some exceptions like OLTP applications. The data lake can't do that really. Or when we talk about real-time scenarios and so on. So there are some things. Also, it's really a different approach for slowly changing dimensions, all the that stuff. It is something you need to think about. But well, on the bottom line, there are a lot of advantages of a data lake. You can handle all data types. You can now handle all scenarios like streaming, batch, and so on. And at the end, it's a perfect foundation for things like machine learning, artificial intelligence. You have limitless options here. But well, be aware. So a data lake is also a beast. So be careful. There are a lot of things you have to do different in a data lake. So when you think, well, I know how Microsoft handles permissions, well, maybe you don't, because the data lake is handled completely differently. So maybe you know POSIX permissions. That is what you see in the data lake with limitations coming with them. So how groups are managed and so on is different, and it has its own limitations. So be careful around that. Also, there is a big danger here. So often you use a data lake for, well, storing all kind of data, basically all data. And when you then don't pay attention to build up the right structures and use the right tools here, it often gets a data swamp. So apply the right tools, for example, Purview, have a look at that. It will help you to find the right data in your data lake, and think about structures, and we will come to that in a moment. So the very easiest way how to use then Power BI with the data lake is, well, to use the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 connector. And well, you are asked for a URL and your credentials. And then you see what we have here on the right-hand side, a long list of all your files in the data lake. Well, it's most probably not the best user experience you can imagine. So you have to filter down that list, and then you have the same experience like you would import a folder. So you get your query created and so on and so on. So it's basically the same. But well, this whole UI is really not that super nice. But we will see alternatives in a moment. So how to get data into the data lake? Well, as I said, there are already tools having native integration like D365. Just putting a switch, you have the data in the data lake. Really great. For any custom scenario, well, you have Data Factory. And Data Factory is really great for bringing data from different data sources into the data lake. However, there are other services, Databricks, Stream Analytics, who can do the same for other data types, for example, like IoT data. And for sure, there's a very prominent member of that family, and that are Power BI data flows. And I know I have quite some experts here in the call, so I don't want to go into details here because, well, you can talk hours about data flows. But well, the whole idea is, well, you have your data sources here, you have some logic you can apply. Basically, you have your Power Query online with all, well, most of the functionalities you know. The difference here is that the data is not stored in a data model afterwards. So at the end, the data model is stored in the data lake. And from there, you can create data sets, reports, dashboards, you know how to do that. But in general, well, it is not a direct link into the data model. It is saving the data first in the data lake. And from there, you can consume it again. So how to get the data then out of the data lake? Well, for that use case, you have the import data flow feature. So here you can now say, well, instead of navigating through a whole list of files, here you have a nice folder structure. Like you have your data flows, you have your different workspaces, you have the data flows in the workspace, and data flow can have multiple entities, so tables. And there you can simply select the tables as they would be on a hard drive or something like that, or on a database, whatever. So that is already looking much more easier and much easier to use for the users. Another way how to get hold of the data is then, or well, to phrase it a different way, the structure Microsoft is applying now to the data in the data lake is now what Alex is talking about. So we are coming now to CDM and other confusions.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Just a point from my side, if you have any question, please don't hesitate. Let's make it interactive as it possible. Okay.
Put it in the chat, raise your hand, whatever. No problem.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now for my part, let's talk a bit about CDM and what is a common data model. So I'm pretty sure most of you already heard about it because of data flows and data lake, and it's coming really to the front right now. But let's go back and where does it come from? So as you can see, there is on my screen we have Adobe, Microsoft, and SAP, and they came up with the Open Data Initiative, and the common data model is one of the big things that they want to develop together. So the idea of it is from one data lake, be able to have the same defined structure and that the structure is working with multiple tools. So that's what we just discussed about the 365, for example, and Power BI and Azure Data Factory. And all of them can work together with the same data structure. And meaning you already have the type of the data inside and allows to have really a standard definition for it. And then what is the big plus of it? It's, for example, for an end user who doesn't really understand how it works and what is the this metadata files that are in the background that I'm just going to talk about later, he's just going to use the data without really caring about what is in the background, but it's really easy for a business level to understand better the data. As you may know, there is already two versions of it. So the version 1 called Untitled Json and the version 2 called Manifest. And what is really interesting to see is that this shared a similar structure, but there is quite a few points that are much appreciated in version 2. So first of all, in the version 1 model.json, you will have, and we will see just after that, the complete exact path to the data files, compared to the manifest, where you can use wildcard. And it could be really useful, for example, for partitioning, or if you have data that are with a time step at the end and run from a pipeline, the Azure Data Factory that's updated every day or whenever, you can just put a star at the end and it will recognize the data. And also a big difference with the manifest is that there is two different files in it. The first one will link with the second file and also link with the data. And the second files will have all the metadata information from the data. So in here, we can see a bit of the structure. We're also going to discuss that later. So that's the structure when it's created directly by Power BI when you connect with your data lake. I'm also going to talk about that just in a moment. And there we can see a bit of the structure for model.json. We can see it's a model.json because it will always be called model.json, and manifest will be called whatever you want. Just at the end, you will have cdm.json. So let's just have a look at the file structure for that. So first of all, let's have a look at the model.json. Hopefully it's big enough. So you can see at the beginning, we have some query information. That's because it was created directly with Power BI and saved on my data lake. But what is really interesting for us is this part, the entity. The entity is going to log with a direct file, and we can see here that we have the column name and the data type at each level. We can add also the display name, for example, some description. Sadly, it's not supported yet by Power BI to read the display name compared to the name, but you could hopefully it's going to come in the near future. And so that's, for example, for the first file. And we can see, oops, the second file is just there with way little columns. But what we also have, which is interesting for us, is the exact path to the data until the timestamp and everything. So if we compare it now to the manifest, here we have the first file of the manifest that I talked, and we can see here it's considered only of one file in this case, and we have first of all the link to where is the second file located. So we can see where is the second file located, and also where is our data located. And so we can see the root location. So what is I'm going to talk about in the format of the data lake just after, but also what is really interesting is the start there with knowing that it's a Parquet file at the end. And that's allow us to use with those timestamp and partitioning and all those things. Let's combine directly the files that are located under combined week, sex, age group. Okay, so as you may know, sometimes you create data flows and you just don't know where they're going to store. They're going to be stored in a managed data lake that is free of use when you use data flows. But sometimes you would like also to see your data flows and, for example, be able to use them or extract them or share them. And so you can also create a connection between a Power BI service and a data lake. So for that, you can just go inside your settings and connect here. What is important to know is you have to be a workspace admin, and also you cannot have any data flow already in the workspace. So if you do, either save them, either delete them, or create a new workspace. That's also possibilities. And so also what we really interesting is now we want to attach a CDM structure as a data flow. So you can see when you want to create your data flows, you have multiple points. And the last one is the attach common data model, which is in preview. And that could be really, really useful. For example, Azure Data Factory can write in CDM format. And if you want to then just link the format that you receive from Azure Data Factory, you can directly attach it and just paste the link here from your data lake inside this box, and you will have directly everything loaded. What you have to understand is you cannot do any transformation once you do that. It's going to be exactly the one-to-one copy for what is defined inside your model.json file. And why I say model.json, because for the moment, and hopefully soon it will be supported for version 2, but for the moment it's only supported for version 1. So now let's talk about option 3. We just saw the two first options, and we can see a bit of resemblance with the data flow structure that Thomas just showed us. And so now you can, when you connect with your Azure Data Lake Gen 2 connector, you can select file system and CDM view, which is in beta right now. And that is the view when you connect as the CDM structure. You will see your container and then all the different folders that you have. And you can see at the end, you have different icons. And that means that is the metadata files, which is linking, and you have all the table under that. And what is very interesting also is you can see here, I'm just at the container level. And it's where my first metadata file is stored. But you can store it pretty much everywhere you want. Just what you have to understand is inside of the folder structure here, you cannot go up a level. You can only go down. So basically, your data cannot be stored above your metadata file. But you can add as many folder structure in there under that if you want to. And then you can directly select the table you want to load. It could be for multiple different CDM format, CDM folder, and that it will work perfectly. And also you will also have directly all the data type that you selected inside your metadata files. Okay, let's have a look at the data lake and how it's stored. So in here we have the model.json I just showed you with the 3 different tables there, and we can see that one has been created directly by Power BI. So it's using just on the same level as the data, and then under that you will have a snapshot for the product and all the product with the snapshot. And the same with your model.json, you will have the snapshot because it evaluated with the refresh or change of the data and stuff like that. So you will have all the other model.json because of this path that is fully written in hard inside the format. So now let's just go up and have a look at those cdm.json, so the manifest version. And in here, we can see we have the gold one, which is just under our container. But if we go and have a look at the gold here, I have another one, which is the second one. And then I have my data, which is just under here as a Parquet file. I also have just here because it was used for a demo also, but here is my data, which is the link to it. And the same with Silver, and for Silver we have many more data and entities in there. We can see as many as them. So in here, they're all linked together just with one manifest file that we saw at the top. So all of them are connected via the Silver demo here. And so now if we go and look at Power BI, how does it look like in Power BI? So here, same level, I just connected with my Azure Data Lake Gen 2 connector, select CDM as a view, and here my connector, my container. And here we can see the model.json, and just there we have our 3 tables for using the model.json. So I can just select one, it will take a bit of time to preview, and I can see everything. And in there, I have, for example, my gold data and my silver data. And you can see here, we can have multiple, and that's not even the limit. You can go really full on if you want. It's just have then usability at the end. I think it's very important to have levels in it. And what just a small thing that I would love to is, for example, if in gold, I do have now, as you saw it before, I do have some CDM files in there, but if I didn't, it will still appear all the folder level, and that would be amazing if they remove all the folder which doesn't have any link to a CDM. So just showing the folder where you have data to load from. Very well. That's it for my part. No, I'm sorry. So now you just saw that we also work with Parquet file. So of course CDM is working with CSV. So CSV is used at so many places, Microsoft using a lot of it, and everybody's know how to work with CSV, and it's very transparent and you can understand it, use it, open it with multiple tools. But what about Parquet file? So Parquet file is a new structure file which is coming from Hadoop, and it's very structured file. And it allows you to have, first of all, your data type stored inside the file. And it's also very great because it's for compressing. It's using a dictionary, so it could compress very well the data as Power BI does it, for example. And it's really fast to read. So if you just want to, for example, from Azure Data Factory, you have a large file, you can transform it in a Parquet file to read it, for example, for Power BI, and it will be much faster using Parquet than CSV. It's also a standard now for data science, and you can see it more and more coming up to the front in data engineering. Very well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex. So I steal the screen from you again. Okay, now let's talk about, well, how we bring Power BI and the data lake even closer together. And for that, we are now talking about Azure Synapse, and to be more precise here, the SQL serverless pools and how to connect them with Power BI. I think that is a really nice option. So if you didn't hear about Synapse, that's an offering from Microsoft, which is, I think, now available publicly or in GA since December. So it has different components in that. We have a SQL offering and a Spark offering here. And the SQL offering is even divided into a provisioned and an on-demand world. So the provisioned is something you might know from the Azure Data Warehouse, or before that it was the Parallel Data Warehouse, the on-prem option. The on-demand part is something new. So Microsoft is saying, well, we bring everything which is analytics related into one studio. And so they say Spark and SQL in both fashions, together with a lot of metadata, monitoring, security management, also with data integration features, all together in one studio, and offer then different languages on top of that. So all these languages are available besides R. So it's not there yet. I can't say anything about that. Everything is sitting on the data lake. And here, the common data model, CDM, is already mentioned explicitly. So how can we make that, or why is it that interesting to have that? The interesting part here is, well, we have these two different fashions, the dedicated pools and the serverless, so the on-demand part in Azure Synapse. And I call it, well, pay-per-use on steroids, what's offered in serverless. Because, well, when you have the old dedicated pools, well, they are not really old, they are enhanced and so on, but the principle behind that is still there. So you pay something like 930 up to $250,000 per month list price. And that's per month. So yes, you can scale these clusters, you can ramp them up and down, but in general, you pay per time you have that running, if you use it or not. Storage is also quite expensive, so nearly 20 euros per terabyte. The serverless approach is completely different. Here, you now pay something like €4.22 per terabyte processed. So you're really paying for what you process and not what you have available. And that is now opening a completely different pricing schema. So if you have queries, like, well, the typical thing you might have in Power BI. So I just need a daily refresh of my data. Why running a database for that? That's the point I raised at the beginning. So even the storage is much cheaper. So yes, there are some limitations, but even the most expensive option is still significantly cheaper than the storage in the dedicated pool. So it depends very much on the use case, but well, at the end, it's it's up to you what you prefer here, what is the better pricing schema for your scenario. So how do you work with that then? Well, you can create something or Synapse calls an external table, or you can create an open row set, and that's a view basically in the serverless pool. So that is what it looks like, and well, this is the important part here. So you say simply create view as a select whatever, and from is now open a row set, and here now you give the URL of your file or your files. So the star is a wildcard here. So in this case, you run that query across all the Parquet files you have available in that folder. And when you now want to consume that in Power BI, you have to first find out the address of your SQL serverless pool. And that's what you find in the Azure portal. There you find the serverless SQL endpoint. And well, it's the one with the on-demand in its name. And then you can simply say, well, for example, for import mode, well, just paste in the URL of your server, so what you got here, and you choose import, and well, more or less you're done. You are asked then for the credentials, but that's it. So really straightforward. And well, there is another alternative, and that is, well, using direct query. So if your data is not that big, direct query might be an option which is really nice. So it's leveraging the same view, it's leveraging the same technology here. It is just switching to direct query here. And just to show you how that works, well, I will give you a small little demo around that. So this is my demo machine, and I connected already to the Synapse Studio. And well, Microsoft makes it really easy for you to learn about Synapse. So what you have here is a learn area. And here you can connect to a gallery. And in this gallery, you find a lot of different data sources, which you can simply use and play with that. For today, I will use the Bing COVID data. It's not super quality data, but well, it's good enough to show you how we can work with that data. So I take that, I click on continue. And now you get a little preview of the data and a description, data sources, and so on. And I simply say add dataset. And what's now happening is, well, here we are now in the data area of your Synapse workspace. And here you have linked datasets. And Microsoft created a blob, or is using a blob storage, which is sharing the same technology or is the foundation for the data lake as well. And here we can simply hook up to data, and here now my data set is located. And when I now want to work with this data set, which is in fact just a linked set of Parquet files, I can easily go and click on the three dots here, and Microsoft offers me nicely to create a new SQL script or to use a new notebook. So if you would like to work with Spark, just go ahead. But we stick with SQL here. So you can easily create an external table. That's something I won't cover right now. Here I select the select top 100 rows, and Microsoft creates a command for me. So just to select top 100 and so on from, and here we have this open row set, and you see Microsoft is provisioning that data set for me, and you see the exact URL here. So it's linking to a single Parquet file called Bing COVID-19 data Parquet on a public blob storage. So, and that is a command I can run. And that might take a moment because my cluster needs to ramp up first. But here we go. So that are the first 100 lines in the Synapse Studio. So I can look at the data. So to create a view out of that, well, I think that is an easy task. So what you basically do is create a view, whatever, give it a name, and then select, and we don't do a top 100 anymore here, just a star, and then you create a view, which is then like a SQL view on a database, but well, still the data is stored on the data lake. So that's then something you can see here. So I have here my databases. They should be here. They're not here. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Okay, somehow this doesn't work for now. This is really fascinating. I refresh the window. Perhaps it's then there. Okay, yeah. So here we have now the databases. Here I have my COVID database, and there I have some views. And here's exactly a view like I created a moment ago. And well, this view is now something we can leverage in Power BI. So I go back to the Power BI data lake into my resource group, into my Synapse workspace in Azure in the portal. And here you see the endpoints you can leverage to connect to Power BI. So I simply copy out this serverless SQL endpoint and go to Power BI. And here I simply say, well, I would like to get some data from Azure, from a SQL database. So don't get confused with Azure Synapse Analytics. So that is only for the old, or well, the traditional provisioned workspace. So here we can simply use the SQL database. And I copy in my address here, and I select Direct Query. So now it's getting a little bit funny because so the credentials are invalid, so I have to sign in. I just enabled my multi-factor authentication, so otherwise it would be cached. So I just need to sign in here again. Come on. Okay, here we have the demo effect again. Okay, that's not behaving very nicely. So in that case, I go back to my data source settings, and I hope I quickly find my data lake here. I just clear the permissions for that. And let's see if it works on the second try. I hope so. Microsoft sign in. That's not nice. Really not nice. Okay, so sorry. So I can just divert back. Well, if sign in doesn't work, so I know Microsoft has some trouble today. So they had some issues on the Azure portal already. So maybe it's also a problem now with the authentication, which would be really bad. Yeah, but unfortunately, I don't see any login. I will give it a last try, restarting Power BI. But if that doesn't work, we have to skip that demo, unfortunately. So get data and Azure and SQL Database Connect. And address, and that's the right one, and it's direct query. And it's a Microsoft account, and I want to sign in. Too bad. I'm very, very sorry. Yeah, this is unfortunate. I can just say, well, I can tell you it works nicely. So you simply go there, you sign in, you get the database presented, you select the view, and simply you put a view on top, or you pull up a direct query data model with a single table, and you can just work with that. So that's a scenario at least which is working now, usually at least nicely with smaller data sets. So I also tried that with some gigabytes of data. So this data set is quite small. With gigabytes of data, well, if you have simple queries, that still works nicely, but otherwise it's getting a little bit slow. So if you are fine with waiting a few seconds on your dashboard, well, then you're still fine. Here it would simply take a little bit longer. With that small data set, it's quite fast. Okay, so sorry, that used to work very nicely. So yeah, so sorry. Okay, so I would like to present you with some other options we have. And that is, well, I didn't try it on my own. I will give you the link down here where you can read more about that. So it's about working with partitions. So when you have large data sets, you often think about, well, okay, can I split my files into multiple partitions? And yes, that's absolutely possible with the data lake as well. So you slice your data in different files. And what Chris did here, he used then a simple model and duplicated the queries here and assigned that to different partitions in the data model. For that, you use Tableau Editor and simply adjusted, so copied the partitions, adjusted the M code behind that so that it links to the different files. And that's how we brought down the processing of a model from 1 minute 4 seconds to 40 seconds. So if you are interested in more details, have a look at that link. Another option, and in fact much more easier, is now that you think about partitions and Synapse. So I showed you when you already have the star here, you can have multiple files and handle that as one data set. And here now the query looks a little bit different. So here we say, well, create a view as a select star, but now here's a special command in there. So here we say we should convert the date time, and we should convert into date time the result of the file, result file path. And well, it now takes here, so here we have partitions in different folders, and it reads the different folders, gets the file path, takes the date out of that, and makes that available as part of the query. And that now allows that you can use the standard incremental import policy here and simply say, well, I take this table, so they called the table Parquet as well, get or store 3 years in here, but only update the last 3 days. And so Synapse will take care about taking only the last 3 days out of the or the last 3 days data out of the data lake and process it. So that is called also partition elimination. So here we have a large data set, and with that command in place, you can enable that Synapse eliminates the partition, so needs to read less data, needs to process less data. Remember, SQL Serverless is paid by the bytes you or terabytes you process, so that is saving money then for you as well. And so you get the result cheaper and faster. So I think that is a really attractive option. But well, this is just the start. So that are just some ideas. And well, there are different other options open. So think about composite models. Think about, well, having historic data in an import mode and just the actual data in a Parquet file. So then you don't need any SQL database. But well, you can do the same trick with a SQL database as well. So only having your historic data in the data lake, SQL DB with the most actual data. Well, if you still don't like the data lake, that might be an option. Or well, you can use Spark and whatever. So it's about just getting creative about, well, working with that data. Yeah, well, and that leads me to the last point of our presentation. Well, and that's the call to action. So just get hold of a data lake, bring data in there, try how to work directly with the data lake, use your data flows to create data which is there in CDM format, get hold of the data there, put some Synapse on top of your data, make it available there, connect to it, hopefully with a little bit more success than I had, and then experience how everything works. This will give you absolutely no new options compared to the traditional just file or just database approach. So we also added some references here, so you find the links to the blogs I used here, and also some introduction from Microsoft about some topics here. And well, what are your questions? Just raise your hand, speak up, whatever you like. Don't be shy.
Seems to me that you guys explained everything perfectly fine, so everybody understood it. So you have just some thanks in a chat. Yeah.
Yep.
And so if there are any questions, speak up, write them, or unmute yourself and ask the questions. So, but for sure, so
we do have Brian who raised his hand. So,
well, question. Synapse is obviously very expensive. Is there any way I can get access to it in a Learn environment?
Well, at least the provisioned version of Synapse is expensive. That's true. Serverless is bloody cheap, I would say.
Okay.
So as I said, or I can go back to the slide. So just going up here again. So the serverless option is extremely extremely cheap. So the dedicated pools, you're right, that can be expensive, but well, for euros 22 for processing a terabyte, I would say that is really cheap. So it depends. When there is no training pool or so I'm aware of where you can simply hook up. The only good thing is, well, if you just need it for a day or so, well, divide 900 by 30, and then you know what it is working with that for a day. And I guess you don't use it for 24 hours. So divide it by 3, and then you have a day how to play. You have to play with a dedicated pool.
Okay.
You have one additional question, Thomas, in the chat.
Yeah. Does incremental loading only work on Parquet files? No, absolutely not. So you can do the same with CSV files. So CSV and Parquet are supported. I think there shouldn't be any limitation on that.
Perfect. So if
there is another question.
Yeah.
No, it's the same one that you just.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Hi,
David. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for the presentation, first of all. It's quite new, and I try to really understand where it can fit in my consultancy for the clients, which way to choose. It's a quite new thing to offer, and is kind of the serverless approach. Is it similar to Snowflake, kind of price-wise?
Well, price-wise, I can't tell you. I don't have any insights about Snowflake pricing. I know that there are some parallel ideas, at least concepts here, and will also. Now I'm getting confused. There is a similar offering at Amazon as well. So it's not Redshift, it's Athena, I think, but I'm not absolutely sure. So this serverless approach, no, it's not a Microsoft invention. No. The good thing here is, well, it is perfectly integrated in Synapse. So the experience here is nice. Well, it is also a T-SQL. It is not some SQL, it is T-SQL, but not all commands are present. So you might imagine or you might understand, for example, you can't write to a table. So that are files, so you can't update something. You can only read it. You can create new tables, so you can create a view and materialize that as a table called CTAS, so create external table as a view. That is possible. but in general, it's not really a database. It's more like, yeah, well, you make a data lake available as or via SQL commands. So I think that phrases it as nicely. So I think Snowflake has some more capabilities there because it's just the database. So here the serverless approach is a little bit different. I would compare Snowflake a little bit more to the dedicated pools.
Dedicated pools, okay, because there are also some indexes that we add on the Snowflake side, but here we don't need the indexes, I guess.
Well, it would be nice if we would have indexes. So yes, you have statistics, but you don't have indexes. So serverless is not leveraging any index.
Just to make it work perfectly, then the data providing part to the data lake should follow some best practices, right? To make things very
absolutely. So leveraging best practices of data flows or data factory is absolutely key here as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think
all the questions are here. So still, if somebody pops out, but from my side, so I want to thank you, Thomas and Alex, for a great presentation and for your time sharing with the user group here. And hopefully all the others, you can join the next interesting presentations already announced, and you can join us on a link on a meetup and see all the upcoming things before the summer break, and we all leave to vacation, hopefully after the lockdowns. So thank you very much, and thank you, Thomas and Alex, and have a nice evening, everybody. Thanks for joining.
A real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.